For more than a decade, a network of 6 military dictatorships shared a single computerized system built to hunt their enemies across border, kidnap them, and to make them simply disappear. Another file follows the money trail of a White House scheme that sold missiles to one enemy to secretly arm a rebel army that Congress had forbidden anyone to fund. And a third describes a secret Masonic lodge holding nearly 1,000 elite named prime ministers, generals, and bankers tied to a collapsed bank and the body of a financier found hanging beneath a London bridge. These were not rumors whispered in the dark. They were systems with budgets, charters, and paperwork stamped secret. Tonight we open 8 more files. Real operations, real victims, real money. The first file begins on a late spring day in 1975 when 5 governments sat down together to organize murder. File 1, Operation Condor, the financial and intelligence clearinghouse. In November 1975, 5 South American military governments, Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, Paraguay, and Bolivia, formally agreed to pool their secret services into a single coordinated machine. With Brazil joining the network the following year, its purpose was to track political enemies who had fled across border, to share files on them, and to seize, transfer, and eliminate them no matter which country they ran to. Exiles who thought they were safe in a neighboring capital were hunted there instead. People were kidnapped in one nation, blown to another, tortured, and never seen again. The system was computerized and centralized, a shared registry of human beings marked for disappearance. United States agencies were aware of the network and in contact with it, a fact laid bare in declassified State Department INFB cable. The full architecture surfaced in 1992 when a researcher in Paraguay stumbled onto a vast cache of police records, now known as the Archives of Terror, later entered into a UNESCO Heritage Register. A continent had built a bureaucracy for murder. The next file follows the secret money out of the White House itself. File 2, the Iran Contra affair, the off-the-books enterprise. In the mid-1980s, Congress had passed a law that flatly banned American aid to the Contra rebels fighting the government of Nicaragua. So a small circle of White House operatives built a way around the law. They secretly sold weapons to Iran, then a declared adversary, and funneled the profits to the Contras anyway. They added third country money and private donations, routing it all through a covert apparatus the operatives themselves called the Enterprise. A private operation doing the government's secret work with the government's secret cash. The scheme broke into the open in November 1986, and the country watched the hearings unfold on live television, including the sworn testimony of Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North. What it revealed was a foreign policy run in the shadows, paid for with money that was never supposed to exist. The findings were documented in the Tower Commission report, the Congressional Joint Committee investigation, and the final report of the independent counsel, Lawrence Walsh. All of it now public record. The next file climbs into the sky over Southeast Tahrir. File 3, Air America, the secret airline. On paper, it looked like an ordinary cargo and charter operation, planes and pilots moving freight across Laos and Indochina. In reality, it was owned by a covert airline flying secret missions for the agency's hidden war in Southeast Asia. Through the 1950s, the 1960s, and into the 1970s, its aircraft supplied Allied forces and ferried men and cargo into places no official American plane was supposed to go. But the cargo was not always what it seemed. Credible congressional investigations found that the plane and the Allied warlords the agency relied on were moving opium and heroin alongside the covert operation. The agency's logistics tangled up with the drug trade of the Golden Triangle. The proprietary airline was examined in the Senate Church Committee record on front companies and in congressional hearings on the drug routes of the region, with the supporting files later declassified as Crest Archive. A spy agency had quietly become an airline, and that airline flew through the heart of a narcotics pipeline. The next file crosses the Atlantic to a lodge that did not officially exist. File 4, Propaganda Do, the secret lodge known as P2 in Italy, behind the doors of an officially closed Masonic lodge. A clandestine network had taken shape. When investigators raided a villa in 1981, they seized a membership list, and the names on it were staggering. Nearly 1,000 of the country's most powerful people. Government ministers, military generals, intelligence chiefs, journalists, and bankers, all secretly bound together. The lodge, called Propaganda Do, sat at the center of one of the worst financial scandals in modern Europe. The fraudulent collapse of the Vatican linked Banco Ambrosiano, and then came the body. In June 1982, the bank's chairman, Roberto Calvi, a man the press called God's bank, was found hanging beneath Blackfriars Bridge in London, his pockets weighed down with stone. Officially, it was first called a suicide, but later inquiries treated it as murder. The lodge, its lists, and its reach were documented by an Italian parliamentary commission of inquiry, whose report and seized membership rolls became public record. A secret society had wired itself into the state, and a banker had paid for it under a bridge. The next file returns to the world of spies, and to an alliance built to escape oversight. File 5, the Safari Club. In the mid-1970s, the United States Congress had just spent months exposing and reining in dragging its covert operations into the open. The response from intelligence chiefs who did not want that scrutiny was to take the work somewhere Congress could not see. In 1976, a secret alliance was formally chartered, joining the spy services of France, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Morocco into a single club. Its purpose was to bankroll and carry out covert operations off the book beyond the reach of American congressional oversight, so that what could no longer be done openly could still be done quietly through part. For years, the arrangement stayed buried. Its existence became undeniable only after 1979, when revolutionaries in Tehran seized the files of the Iranian intelligence service, and the club's founding charter surfaced into public record. The captured document, later reproduced openly, named the members and the mission in their own words. When one government secrecy was broken, another secret club fell out of the record. The next file leaves the world of guns for the world of ideas. File 6, a secret funding of Western culture. Not every covert operation used a weapon.
For more than a decade, from 1950 into 1967, quietly bankrolled a vast cultural campaign.
It paid for literary magazines, funded art exhibitions, underwrote orchestras and concert tour, and financed grand intellectual congresses, all to shape the climate of ideas in the West and to compete with Soviet propaganda on the battlefield of the mind. The money usually arrived through layers of front foundations, so that the writer, painters, and thinkers being funded often had no idea of who was really paying them. A generation read essays and attended congresses that felt like the free exchange of thought, never knowing an intelligence agency had helped set the stage. The operation was exposed in 1967 when the funding routes were uncovered, and a former division chief, Thomas Braden, publicly admitted the agency's hand in an article that confirmed what many had suspected. The agency's own history later acknowledged the campaign, and its records sit as declassified file. Free Thought, it turned out, had a secret sponsor. The next file keeps the propaganda war on the air. File 7, the KI is covert funding of Radio Free Europe or in Radio Liberty. For Americans who tuned in, the story was simple and inspiring. 2 radio stations beamed uncensored Western news across the Iron Curtain into the Soviet bloc, and they were said to run on the donations of ordinary citizens, dimes and dollars given by patriotic Americans to fight communism with the truth. That story was a cover for more than 20 years, from 1949 until 1971. The stations were secretly funded by the KIA, overseen through a quiet government body known as the 303 Committee. By official figures, the covert support ran to roughly $350 million over the life of the arrangement. While the public was told the money came from private hands, the arrangement was documented in the State Department's own official history series. The foreign relations of the United States and records later released under mandatory declassification review, the broadcasts themselves may well have carried real news, but the comforting tale of citizen donors was itself a piece of fiction written to hide the agency behind the microphone. The next file is the darkest of all, a program built around death itself. File 8, Zweifel and Q-Juin, the standing assassination capability at the height of the Cold War in the early 1960s. The cat went beyond plotting a single killing. It set out to build a permanent capability to do it, an on-call program designed to be ready to murder foreign leaders when ordered. Under the cryptonyms Zweifel and Q-Juin, the agency recruited a European criminal as a kind of standing agent, a man to be kept available for the most extreme operations. The officer running it left a chillingly clear paper trail of how it was meant to stay hidden. His own handwritten notes warned never to mention the word assassination and to keep no projects on paper. The program operated in the era of plots against figures in Cuba and the Congo, a quiet machinery for political murder held in reserve. It was finally laid bare by the Senate Church Committee, whose 1975 interim report, titled Alleged Assassination Plots Involving Foreign Leaders, remains public, alongside a 1967 internal Inspector General report and the files later released in the JFP Records collection. The government had treated assassination as a service to keep on the shelf, and then it wrote down that it must never be written down. 8 more files, and almost every one comes back to the same instinct: the urge to act without a name attached, to spend money no one can trace, and run operations no one can see. A continent shared a system for hunting its own exiles. A White House sold weapons to fund a war it was forbidden to fund. A spy agency owned an airline, bankrolled the culture, and quietly kept a killer on call. Each of these surfaced only because a raid, a hearing, or a stolen archive outlived the secrecy wrapped around it. Power prefers the dark, but the paperwork has a way of finding the light. Come back when the next one is declassified.